I want to start this video in a very specific way, because this episode exists for a reason. And it's not a trendy reason, it's not a YouTube algorithm reason, and honestly, it's not even about me. It's about a conversation, a real one. A few days ago, inside my LinkedIn group, Stoicism for Business, a writer and a teacher, his name is Paul Ruth, he shared an article he had written. The title was about the complexity of Stoicism in a broken world. And what caught my attention wasn't just the quality of the article, which I will link in the description for anyone who wants to read it, but the reason he wrote it. He said something that stopped me cold. He said that he sees many of his students getting falsely inspired online in wrong ways about Stoicism. And this is something that I get asked all the time, because actually, if you're anything like me, I'm sure you noticed it too, especially online, especially on social media, because Stoicism is everywhere right now, on YouTube, on Instagram, on podcasts, on TikTok clips, cut down into 15 seconds of bravado. And on the surface, that looks like a win. Philosophy going mainstream, ancient wisdom revived. But unfortunately, there is an uncomfortable truth that most of what's being sold as Stoicism online today is not Stoicism. It's a distortion. It's a caricature, a performance. And so what many people are practicing isn't Stoicism. It's emotional suppression dressed up as strength. But it's not. It's indifference that is misunderstood as numbness. And so it's resilience that's confused with repression. And so I often call this broicism, not to mock anyone, but to name a pattern. And that pattern is actively harming a lot of people, especially young men, and especially ambitious people. And I say that with my clients, especially entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, executives, investors, and professionals who are already under pressure and are desperately looking for a mental operating system that actually works. So when Paul said he wrote that article because he was worried about what his students were absorbing online, then I decided to make this video, because this matters. And as you can see, this is a raw, unfiltered video. It's just me here walking my dog. It's been raining. So I'm here as real as the unfiltered reality is. So this video is about substance. Here I'm not about creating those fast-paced, ultra-edited, flashy videos about Stoicism. I'm here to give you the substance, the essential, because this is what Marcus Aurelius said. He said, always look at what is essential. And so I'm talking to you here, not academically, not even philosophically, but practically and humanly, and also professionally, because this is what professionals, usually I work with entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, executives, and executives, they need Stoicism, but not the distorted version, not the flashy videos that you usually find about Stoicism or those videos created with AI. So this is not even a reaction video. This is it's not even a critique of Paul. I want to be clear. In fact, we are completely aligned. So this is about a response to a real concern. A real concern raised by Paul, because Paul is someone who actually teaches, who actually cares. He cares about philosophy and how philosophy shapes real minds. And in his case, we're talking about his students' minds. And also, like them, all those young people who are searching for meaning online, and they find that distorted version of Stoicism. And so, if now this video reaches only him, only Paul, his students, and a handful of people who are quietly confused by what they've been told Stoicism is, then for me it's enough, because I believe it's already done its job. So now let me be very clear from the beginning. Stoicism is not about not caring. Stoicism is not about shutting down emotions. And Stoicism is not about becoming cold, detached, or unfeeling. That's not ancient Stoicism. And that's not lived Stoicism. And it sure as hell is not useful Stoicism for anyone, especially for business or life. So that's completely useless. That distorted version that they are trying to sell you, actually they are very successful in selling you that distortion as Stoicism. And so what is Stoicism? What is it about? Stoicism is about order, internal order first. It is about learning how to regulate your inner world so that you're not hijacked by impulses, by moods, by fear, by ego, or by the external chaos. If you think about what said Marcus Aurelius didn't say nothing matters. He said you have power over your mind, not the outside events. Realize this, and this is how you will find strength. So that's not indifference. That's discipline. That's applied discipline. And also Epictetus teaches people not to be passive. He taught them to distinguish between what is up to them and what is not, so that they could act decisively where it actually counts, where it actually matters. It is about focusing your mind where you can have an impact. That is the area where you can have control of what is outside of you. But first, you start with controlling your inner self, your inner regulation, your inner scoreboard, and you can do that only if you have an inner compass. And so you need to build first that inner compass that is made of principles, that is made of values. And those principles and those values, they have an hierarchy so that you have priorities in your choices when you have to decide what is right to do. And so through principles and values, you can execute in alignment with virtue. Because for Stoicism, virtue is the only good. And when I say virtue, I'm talking about, we could translate that today differently from how it has been translated in the Middle Ages, because it got translated in a moralistic way. And so when you think about virtue today, you think it's about something moralistic. But the original meaning of virtue, it comes from the Greek word, because it was a translation in Roman Latin language from the Greek word arete. And arete means excellence. Excellence means expressing the full potential of yourself. So that requires effort, that requires purpose, and that requires you to apply strength against resistance, the resistance that life will give you. And so this is arete, this is excellence. And then when it was translated by the Romans, for the Romans, if you think like a Roman soldier, because Roman was a militaristic society, so the citizen was also a soldier. And for them, excellence meant being manly, manliness. And so this is power, the root of the word virtue, and also virilis is manly, man. So for them, it was applying strength and being a strong man at mind first, and then a strong man on the battlefield. So that's the Roman translation of excellence. But the original meaning is excellence in a wider application that you can use for that word, and today we can apply that to our everyday life. And like a Roman soldier facing adversities, Seneca said that no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversities, because he has been denied the privilege to prove himself. And so why that? Because if you think about what Seneca also says, he says that excellence, again, he uses the word excellence, talking about virtue. He says excellence never happens by chance. And then he says virtue must be learned, practiced, and tested. And so you achieve virtue by excellence. They are very interconnected. Also, if you think about the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, it starts with, to my grandfather, Verus, character and self-control. To my father, integrity and manliness. You see, you find again the word manliness. And this is again for them virtue. And for them, virtue is excellence. And so this is why in Stoicism, you are pursuing excellence as the full expression of your potential. And so you are very deep interacting with the life around you, because the life around you will give you many opportunities to prove yourself and to grow your character. Again, virtue is the only good, and your character is all that you have. All the other things, the world around you, the physical world, the possessions, the properties, all the things that you can buy with money, they are temporary. They are there while you are living with them, and then one day you will depart this life, and those things will remain here. So they're not really yours. Epictetus said that you are a temporary custodian of those things, of those properties. And actually, Epictetus says also that you are a temporary custodian of your body, because in your body, one day you will. Your days are numbered, said Marcus Aurelius. Your days are numbered. Don't think like your life will last forever. So, while you are on this life, he also said that you could live life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. And that means that you have to embrace life and dedicate yourself to what really matters, what has meaning. And that is the growth of yourself, your character, because that is truly yours. No one can take it away from you. No one can steal it from you. And then this is how you achieve the fulfillment of who you are. You achieve that sense of purpose in life, and that sense of happiness that cannot be translated, because the Stoics had a special word for it. for what we today translate into happiness, but is much more than that. And they called it eudaimonia. And eudaimonia is happiness, but it's not in the way we understand it today, because today we are happy if we buy something we like, or if we do something we want to do and we are happy, or I don't know, for other reasons like this. But for them is actually living the good life, the life in alignment with nature, the life in alignment with the Logos, because you are an expression of the Logos, and the Logos is the rational order of the world, of the universe. And so, if you live in alignment with it, then you can find that purpose and that fulfillment that we are missing today. You can find meaning in your life. And so, that word, eudaimonia, the best way I found to translate it is the flourishing of your soul, the flourishing of your mind through virtue. Because it's only through virtue, and as I said before, virtue is the full expression of yourself, expressing your full potential. That's what you should work on actively, consistently, because it's a process. It's a path that you walk every day. And so it's not about knowing the path. It's about walking the path. And by the way, this is a quote from Morpheus in the movie The Matrix. He says to Neo that there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And so, knowing the path is reading all those books about Stoicism. Again, more selling about Stoicism. And then more quotes that you scroll on social media. But actually, you have to act on it. You have to take action, because Stoicism is a virtue-based philosophy. And this means that it's a philosophy that tells you what is right to do. It doesn't tell you all those theoretical, abstract notions that you find in many other philosophies, which could be interesting. It's okay. If you like that, go on, read all of that. But Stoicism is for people who needed to know what was the right thing to do. Because they were emperors, they were politicians, they were generals, they were warriors, they were people who were deeply confronted with all the emotions that life forces you to face. And they needed to know what was the right thing to do. Because I'm sure you also feel that same, when you have that decision fatigue, because you don't know what is right to do. And even after you took that decision, you still don't know if it was the right decision. You ruminate on it. You think, you keep thinking about it. Most of the time, it also keeps you up at night. And because you don't know what is the right thing to do. And you are self-doubting yourself. You are second guessing, and it's difficult. It's always been difficult for humans of all ages, of all periods of the evolution of humanity. And the Stoics were deeply connected with emotions, and they found a way to rule them. That is not to suppress them, but to rule their emotions, because emotions are what makes you human. They are what makes you human. And so they are the fuel that's propelling you forward, that fire that you feel inside. And you have to be able to use that fire, not letting that fire burn you, but also don't letting it die. And so that is the force that is within you. And you shouldn't suppress that force, but you should be able to rule that force that are your emotions. So I said before what taught Epictetus to his students, to concentrate on what was up to them, because some things are in our control and other things are not. So that doesn't mean to detach. That means to rationally being able to focus your effort on what is in your control, so that you can act with decision and with impact where it actually matters, because there you can make a difference. And Seneca, if you think about Seneca, Seneca was advising politicians, bankers, power brokers. Actually, he was also advising Nero. Nero was not a nice person to deal with. And so he understood extreme ambition, and he understood money, and also he understood risk, and for sure he understood pressure. And so, also for him, Stoicism was never a philosophy for disengaging from life. It was a philosophy for engaging with life, but correctly. So this is where things go wrong online, because somewhere along the way, indifferent stopped being a technical, ethical term and became a lifestyle aesthetic. But this is a distortion, because is an ethical term, being indifferent, and in this way is technical. But if you use that just like aesthetic on social media, a kind of lifestyle that is distorted, then it is turned into emotional denial. Emotional denial. So, somewhere along the way, what was strength turned into just silence. That's dangerous, because repression doesn't make you strong, it makes you brittle. And I want to give you also some scientific grounding for this, because Stoicism understood this thousands of years ago, but today this has been demonstrated by science, and especially neuroscience is very clear about this. Because what is saying in neuroscience is that emotions that are suppressed, they do not disappear. Actually, they go underground. They kind of leak out in stress responses, in impulsive decisions. You know, the burnout, the anxiety, the aggression, and eventually the collapse. So Stoicism never taught repression. It taught mastery. And mastery is active. Is something active. Is something that is trained. Is something that is embodied. That's why Stoicism requires you to embody this philosophy. It's not about reading more books or scrolling more quotes. If you don't actually truly take action of just one of those quotes. So, you should choose one quote if you want to practice Stoicism, and then embody by practicing that quote, that idea, that concept of Stoicism. And so here is the key idea that I want you to hold on to through this entire episode that I am creating for you. And that is that Stoicism is like mathematics and physics, because you don't need to know the formulas consciously for gravity to work. Gravity works. You don't need to quote Galileo Galilei or Isaac Newton to fall off a cliff. You don't need to study equations for numbers to add up, because they are laws of nature, and the laws apply whether you believe in them or not. So, Stoicism is the same, because Stoicism is the natural law of rationality and human behavior, because it's the expression of the Logos. You are the expression of the Logos because you are part of nature, and so you are required to live in accordance with nature. So, this also means something very uncomfortable for a lot of people. The person who applies Stoic principles instinctively without ever reading a single textbook about Stoicism is far more stoic than the person who quotes Marcus Aurelius all day, but melts down under pressure. You see, Stoicism it's a name that we give to these ideas and to those who together met in a place that was the Stoa, that was a painted porch, a colonnade, and the Greek name was Stoa. And so they were called the Stoics. That means those who were meeting in that place. So it doesn't mean how you call it. Like mathematics, it doesn't mean how you call a certain pattern or how you use, for example, a notation. If you want to use a notation for calculus, we are using the notation from Newton, but there was also another notation from Leibniz. And Leibniz discovered calculus exactly almost at the same time together with Newton. So it doesn't matter who discovered it, how they called it, or what notation they used. Calculus, is something that is it is nature. It is the language of nature. Galileo Galilei said that mathematics is the language of God, the language of nature, how nature uses the language to give meaning to the things around you. Because through mathematics, you can create a model of the world, and by creating this model, then you can interact through the formulas that mathematics and physics offer you to solve problems now. Because now you understand how things work rationally, and so now you can also make them work at your own advantage. And it is the same for Stoicism, because once you understand the Stoicism, you can, those things that work, because I'm sure you applied Stoicism when things worked for you, because you were in alignment with the laws of nature. And when things didn't work, you were not applying Stoicism, but you were doing that unconsciously. But once you do that consciously, because you know about Stoicism and you apply Stoicism, then you can make things work out for you in a predictive way, like when you solve a problem because you know the formulas. And this is where business and finance Stoicism becomes real, because my channel is about the application of Stoicism to business and finance. Because in business, nobody cares about what philosophy you studied. They care about how you decide, how you react, how you lead under uncertainty. And so, now, let me say something that might ruffle some feathers. You cannot learn Stoicism by reading alone. You just can't. Because reading is useful, sure, but it's theory. But theory without practice is entertainment. It's just like you can't learn to swim by reading about swimming. You have to get in the water, you have to get in the pool, and you have to practice. And you have to practice under supervision so that you will not drown. And also, if you want to learn to ride a bike, you have to get on the bike. You can't just learn it by reading about how to ride a bike. You have to start practicing, and again, under supervision of someone who is there protecting you when you fall. And also is guarding you from your blind spots that by definition you cannot see because they are your blind spots. And that's why I believe in the coaching, and that's why I have this mission at the Stoic Coach. So this is very practical, and Stoicism is practical. And so it's also like, think about when you learn to lift weights at the gym. You don't do that by studying bodybuilding textbooks. You don't study a bodybuilding textbook and you grow your muscles. You have to go to the gym and do the reps. And it's not difficult, it's simple. It's simple what you have to do, but it's hard to do. That's why it's so hard for many people, because it requires commitment. It requires intention. And it requires also there someone who is there to show you the right way to do the exercises and to make you execute when you don't feel like it. And that is again your coach, your personal trainer at the gym. And so this is for everything in life where you have to apply your knowledge to do something practical. Also when you have to learn to drive a car. You can't learn to drive without an instructor. Or if you want to fly an airplane, you can't fly an airplane just by reading a book. You have to get in the cockpit with a flight instructor and real hours in the cockpit so that you practice. And you practice with someone who is there protecting you from your mistakes, because there can be deadly mistakes if you try to fly an airplane solo without first having practiced with an instructor close to you. And so, you see, you cannot learn Stoicism without practice, without feedback, and without guidance. And also without all the experiences, the adversities that life will offer you. Like said Seneca, the gods treat the good men well by giving them the opportunities to practice their wisdom and their strength. Because those opportunities are the adversities. And you welcome those adversities because those are the feedback that life offers you in order to refine your judgment and to grow your character through them. And so no man is more unhappy than he who never faced adversities, because he's been denied the privilege of proving himself. And also Seneca said that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. And again Seneca said that ignis aurum probat, the gold is tested in the fire. There's not a way for you to know if the gold is gold. You have to test it, and you test it in the fire. And so Seneca said that exactly like the gold is tested in the fire, good men are tested by adversities. What a miserable life would you have without adversities? Think about it. Those are what makes you refine yourself, polish yourself like a gem through the friction that life offers you. And so you have to go through your life with intention, because also Marcus Aurelius said that your actions may be impeded, and your actions will be impeded. But there can be no impediment to our intentions and dispositions. That is what wrote Marcus Aurelius. Because your mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacles to our acting. And so the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, because what stands in the way is your way. You have to go through that. Like a captain of a ship has to go through the storm to prove that he is a captain. Because another saying is that every man is a sailor when the sea is calm. Think about it. When the sea is calm, everyone could say, I'm a sailor. But the real seamanship is revealed when there is the storm, when the winds are unfavorable. And so that is where the sailor becomes a true sailor, becomes a captain, the captain of your life. And so you cannot prove yourself unless you will face adversities. And be sure life will give you many opportunities to prove yourself, because you will go through adversities. But what you call adversities are the world around you that is giving you back information. Because when you operate in a world that first you don't know, because you came to this existence without any instruction manual, so you test yourself. And imagine the first sailors in ancient, in the Bronze Age. They were going without knowing where they would arrive. They were going across land, across the sea. And so they were discovering something and they were expecting something. But what they met was not what they were expecting. And so it is the same for you. Because when you want to do something in your life, you expect an outcome, a result. And then you don't get the outcome that you were expecting. And so you call it a failure. But actually, that's feedback. And then you are confronted with something that forces you to grow your character. And you call it an adversity. Those are something you should be grateful for because they're giving you feedback. It's like a cybernetic process of, if you know about cybernetics, is about receiving feedback from the environment. And so it's a loop of command and control. So you take action, you see the outcome of that action. If you think about a ballistic missile is ballistic. So it's shot and then it goes where it ends. But a cybernetic missile, it keeps changing its trajectory until it gets the target. And this is the Terminator mindset. Because a cyborg, in cybernetics, and this applies to life, it applies to nature. In cybernetics, there is this loop of command and control where you keep changing your trajectory until you achieve your target. And so it's impossible for you not to achieve your target, whatever it is, even if you want to just make money. And so we use that in business and finance, for example. Because if you understand how nature works, because you understand the true Stoicism, then you can correct your trajectory by receiving the feedback through the outcomes that you keep iterating, because it's an iterating process, and through this loop that starts with you planning your next move, then taking action. You have to take action. You only acquire that next step through action. Action comes first. Because if you wait for the perfect moment, it will never arrive. You will never have all the information you need. Because you get the information, you acquire the information through action. So first you plan, and then you take action, and then you monitor the outcomes, and be sure they will not be what you would expect. So they're not. You don't call it failure. Don't call it adversities. Don't call it for what they are. They are data. They are feedback. You want them in business, in finance. People pay for feedback. If you want to make a marketing campaign, especially online, all those dashboards, when you do a split testing, an A/B testing in marketing campaigns, for example, you already know that most of the outcomes will be not what you would expect. If you are a venture capitalist and you invest in 10 companies, you already know that 9 of those 10 will fail miserably. But one of them, the unicorn, will pay for all the others. So it's part of the business model. And so this is the business model of life. So again, you plan, then you do, then you monitor the outcomes, and then you adjust using the information that now you have, that you wouldn't have had if you didn't take action in the first place. So you plan and do, then you monitor, then you adjust, and with those new information, you plan again. And now you take action again. And now again you monitor. And now you adjust again. And you keep refining this model until it is so powerful and so effective that there is nothing that you cannot achieve. And this is embodied philosophy. This is Stoicism as embodied philosophy. Because this is trained into the nervous system. It is trained into decision making, and it is trained into habits, daily habits, into judgments, and into your reflexes. You become an expression of the Logos. This is the idea of Stoicism, because you are an expression of the Logos. And if you learn to live in accordance with it, there's nothing that you cannot achieve in this life. And also, there's this sense of fulfillment, of meaning in what you do, of purpose. And this is this sense of really feeling the eudaimonia, that happiness that comes when you are feeling the flourish, the flourishing of your soul, the flourishing of your mind through embodying virtue. And so this is why so many people think that they're being stoic when in reality they are just avoiding discomfort. But again, that's not stoicism, that's avoidance. Stoicism doesn't avoid discomfort. Actually, there is also a practice called the you voluntarily put yourself in discomfort. So you practice voluntary discomfort. And so I'm thinking now about Paul, because Paul made a great point in his article. He made a great point about indifference. And so I want to underline this because it's crucial. In classical Stoicism, external things are indifferent, but in terms of moral value, not in terms of practical relevance. So money is indifferent morally, and so is status, and so is health. And so is also the car that you drive. But that doesn't mean that they don't matter. It means that they are tools, and the tools can be used well or badly. So the Stoic question is never what did you choose, but it is why. Why did you choose it? Did reason govern your decision, or impulse, or fear, or ego, or social pressure? That question is everything. It's everything I see that usually in business, for example. But yet, if we look at online Stoicism, then online Stoicism often stops at the first half of the sentence and throws away the second. Because you read and you hear those, those nothing matters, those don't care, those detach. That's not Stoicism. That's also, I would say, nihilism, but also in that case is a distorted nihilism with a Greek font. And I'm saying this bluntly because entrepreneurs and leaders that I work with cannot afford this confusion. They can't, because you already face decision fatigue, you already carry financial anxiety, and you already deal with team issues, isolation, pressure, and also the fear of being outpaced by the market. And so what you need if you are an operator, again, in my case, I see that in leaders in business and finance who has to face this environment. So what you need in this case is not emotional shutdown. What you need is clarity. What you need is clarity. And Stoicism gives clarity. This is what Stoicism does, but only when it's practiced correctly. So this is why I'm making this video. And this is why I'm responding to Paul's concern. And this is why I want this channel that I've created to become a place where Stoicism is lived, not cosplayed. I want us to embody this philosophy because before we go deeper, and we will go deeper. I will pause here. I will pause here. Because if you're anything like me, I'm sure you've been there. You've been overloaded. You've been pulled in 10 different directions, trying to stay composed while the ground keeps shifting. And so that's why I'm creating these videos, and I created this channel because my goal here is to make it easier on you who is watching this video. Because society has already made it hard enough on us. And so I believe that Stoicism, only Stoicism, can offer us a philosophy to be lived, to be embodied, and to feel again that sense of meaning in life. And so I created this video based on Paul's article, but if you're still here and you're still watching, let me know if this resonated with you. If you felt that something about online Stoicism felt off, but perhaps you couldn't articulate it, then stay with me, because I'm creating more videos, and in the next video we are going to dismantle exactly how this distortion happened and why it spreads so well online, and most importantly, why intelligent, driven people keep falling for it, even when it doesn't actually work. And so, if you want to stay with me also in the next videos, be sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Let me know if you resonated with what I exposed here about that distorted version of Stoicism. So you can hit the like button, and you can write a comment for me, so that I also know what is your opinion and your personal experience. So for now, I'll close this video, but as I'm saying, I'll continue in the next one, and so I invite you to keep working with me, because this was just the beginning. So you will find here the next video. You can click on it now so that we can keep working this path together, and I will meet you there. Live long and prosper. Marcus, vieni qui. Bravo! Bravo Marcus! Dai, 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 dai!
Business and finance stoicism.